welcome. Thank you for, luckily she's taught me well enough to be able to manage on my own. So welcome this morning. So how many of you have a room or a closet or garage or basement that is more overwhelming now than it was 5 years ago? By a show of hands. All right, then you're definitely in the right place. My name is Leanne Faltad, and by day I help families.
They're saving seats.
Betsy and I help families with complex moves move without the overwhelm, or at least reducing the overwhelm. So we were in Century 21, and your silver journey came about because Betsy and I both have gone through the experience of helping our mothers go through some difficult changes and navigating. And as we get older and our clients get older, we are aware that there are more unanswered questions than there are answers. And so we put together a seminar where it's a safe place for us to be able to invite experts to come and share their education with us and us to be able to ask questions. So welcome again. Today we are going to be talking about downsizing part 3. And before we get into that, I want to, this is a slide to remind me to thank our education partners that are here. Without the education partners in the back of the room, we would not be here. Their connections, their education, just having their phone numbers in my phone book to be able to call them and ask them questions. So I want to thank our education partners and thank the library for being able to have us here. They have some articles, I have some articles in the back of the room that talk about where we can do some drop-offs and some oh, Mary, you're here. Where'd you go? I have my lovely coworker here, so thank you for coming this morning. So there's some articles in the back room, so please stop by and see our education partners if they're in the end. And let's see our expert panelists. Look what I did over the weekend. I stalked them and found their pictures. So we have Miss Stephanie with Spirit and Space, and we have Lee Carson with 8th Year Auction House, and Sandra Dutusta with Simple Cassandra. And they do things in a little bit different way, and so that's why I've asked them to come here and share a little bit about themselves. We'll talk for a little while, then I'll let you answer or ask your own questions. A little bit of housekeeping. The restrooms are out the door. You'll turn left and then right and go straight into the restrooms. In front of you or on your seats, you had a little notebook and pen to jot down some questions. You have an invitation to our next seminar, and you have a survey. And your surveys are super helpful to Betsy and I as we plan and organize our next seminars. So please jot down anything that you would like, any sort of feedback, anything that you think would make better, anything that you want to hear about. That's super important, so thank you for doing that. All right. Anybody have any questions before we get started?
I have a quick comment. I have an important phone call. I think you all would understand. My father, who's 100, I just learned, was in the hospital. He just was brought to the hospital, and he might be having surgery, so I'm trying to balance both, and I really want to be here, and I'm excited to be here, but if I leave abruptly to run outside to take a phone call, that's why.
Yeah, she wants to talk to Dad before he has surgery. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Thank you.
And so this is the season we're in, isn't it? So she's in good company, isn't she? All right. One last thing before we get started. You have tons of home show tickets at the registration desk. So please take a handful if you want to go with some friends. That was to remind myself to tell you about the home show tickets. All right. You can tell us a little bit about what you do. Yeah,
Sorry.
Stephanie.
I am Stephanie Denson. I'm the founder and lead organizer with Spirit and Space.
So as a professional organizer, my vision is to come alongside clients, help them accomplish their organizing and relocation support projects in less time than they expect, in a way that lifts their spirits. But I'm also a collectibles advisor, helping clients identify and sell items of value. And I sell to about 50 local dealers, and I also have national partners for that.
Thank you.
I'm Lee. I'm with Aether Auctions, and I'm an appraiser as well. So just like you guys are going to be experiencing soon, a downsizing type situation. That's what we're here for, to help with that, to liquidate, to sell all of your items, help you transition to your next chapter.
And I'm Sandra with Simplify with Sandra, and for my whole life I've been helping volunteer in hotlines, so I've been doing a lot of crisis counseling, and I also love organizing, so I've been the emotional support you didn't know you needed when trying to downsize, and that's what I do.
So we have an annual series, but within the series we had 3 downsizing in particular. So this is our 3rd chapter part of that series within a series. So first we talked about the psychology of downsizing, and Sandra with her background was able to help us to, and that the panel that we had that session, it just sort of acknowledging the overwhelm of just even thinking about parting with the items that we've accumulated over the years. And then part 2, we talked about the actual physical moving, where there are real estate agents that help families navigate A to Z, that end to end, to help you bring alongside partners that help you actually get from your home to your next chapter. Like Jonna, she literally comes in and helps pack and move and then unpack so that it's safe when you're to that next chapter. And then today it's like what to get rid of, what to do with all the things. So I wanted to ask you, it's a different than this just sort of navigating what to do with all of our things. So the first question that I had to the whole panel is, what has changed in the resale and liquidation market that surprises most people these days? So I'm sure you all have a take on that. What surprises most people?
I'll go first. I would say age doesn't equate to value. That's the big thing. A lot of people think just because something's antique means it's valuable. That's not always the case. You'd be surprised, certain categories of things that do hold their value well, while others don't. I would say nowadays, especially in a downsizing type situation, customers on the secondhand market, they're looking for relevant things for their own house. Furniture, tools, stuff in the garage, stuff in your kitchen, home decor, rather than collector plates and just those more antique type categories. That's not across the board, it's just here and there, but what would you say on it?
I think of 2 things that I bump into with my clients who are surprised. One is that there are times when people have things that they assumed would have value. People in our generation and over assume that the heirlooms, the dishes, the china, the glassware, etc., would be passed down. They would still have value. And many times they find kids don't want it, but secondly, they find that it doesn't have much value on the secondary market. And sometimes I'm the voice of reality to say that no, that Hummel just isn't the value that you thought it was. On the other side, however, there are items that continue to hold value, and especially these days. So precious metals, gold and silver, continue to hold value, and people are amazed and surprised at how quickly that adds up. But also, I deal with a lot of smalls, vintage things that people think, no one wants that 60s picnic basket or the 50s beach blanket. Oh yes, they do. They are in demand on the vintage market, and so working with vintage dealers, people can be surprised at what I say. Well, I'll pack in my car. Oh, I've got buyers for you. Like, I never expected that to get any value.
That would be the advantage to working with someone who knows what they're doing. That's true. Yeah, there's an advantage.
And and I actually don't know what I'm doing as far as selling things, I have to be honest. But I have looked into things when people have items, and I just do some research online. And, I would have to refer to Stephanie, because I know Stephanie, and I now can refer to Lee. But I know a lot of people have collected things, and they were expecting it to be worth a lot of money, and they've kept it in pristine, perfect condition in the original boxes, and in the end, it's not worth anything, and it's just a major surprise, and that's just was the unfortunate aspect of helping downsize sometimes.
Lee, do you remember when we helped Miss Evelyn move? She had a collection, was it armadillos?
Was it armadillos?
It was.
People collect all different things, elephants, pigs, that's cat stuff, we see it all. We saw a spatula collection before. I think they had like 2,000 spatulas from all over the world, but
And I asked Miss Evelyn, like, what was the origin of the collection of the armadillos? And she said, I have no idea.
Usually it's because they get one for Christmas,
That's
and
what
then
she
all
said.
the family, all the friends think they like it, and they keep getting more and more,
And how do
and
you
30
say
years
no?
later, their house is completely full.
It was full.
Yeah.
We did have an auction, and there was someone who bought all those armadillos because they were having some gala, some fancy something that was going to help them sort of decorate for that gala, and someone bought all those armadillos.
There's always a new home for most things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see, Lee, what does a traditional estate sale, when does a traditional estate sale make sense? And when does it not make sense?
I would answer it like this. Traditional estate sales, were the norm before COVID. COVID came along, kind of changed the game, made people feel more comfortable with buying things online. Think you're buying a bed set, but now you can't touch it, you can't feel it. So now it's up to good photography and dimensions and descriptions, and all that. But I would say a huge part of the market, not just us, but a lot of other companies completely went online because you sell a lot more items in the house. You have a lot more eyeballs on the items as well, rather than someone just seeing a sign, seeing an ad in the paper. It really doesn't get the people around anymore. It's all about seeing the items for sale online.
So just kind of matching your strategy for rehoming those items.
Right.
Can I add something there?
Please.
There are still times when an estate sale might make a lot of sense. If there's a lot of things, I remember a client who had a house in Mooresville, and it was full of her mother's stuff. Not high value across the board. We took care of jewelry and coins ahead of time, and silver. But there was still so much that people were going to be interested in, from antiques to decor, etc. And for that family, the choice they went with was to have an estate sale. They still happen regularly. We know a lot of different folks who go to them and who have them. And that is an option. People will buy almost anything at an estate sale. You'd be surprised. Sometimes clients say, well, I should take the old cleaning stuff to Goodwill. Like, nope, just leave it in the house. Because an estate sale has to have a big enough lot and enough variety to draw buyers in. So it's another alternative.
Sandra, what do you do to help clients sort of emotionally get ready to either organize or to simplify or to rehome their items?
Well, just a simple conversation. Everyone knows it's really easy to buy things. There's not a real strong emotional connection, concern, other than financial, of course, about seeing something, you love it, you can afford it, you buy it. But then trying to remove it from your house, that's emotional, and that's really difficult. And it's really challenging when your family doesn't want any of your items. So that's when I start asking them, what are your passions? Like I have helped people who have a lot of things that actually have a lot of animal things, and then they want to donate to, let's say, ARPA or animal welfare groups, or they're really connected to women's issues. So then they can go to like Thrifty Threads or other organizations that help women or individuals now struggling to start their families again. So when you know that your items will be helping someone, and they are gonna have purpose, and they're now sitting in your house not doing anything, and it's gonna make you feel so good knowing they're helping something that you're passionate about, that really helps motivate people.
Stephanie, talk to me a little bit about consignment shops. We don't have a guest here from consignment shops, but because you and Lee both sort of give some, understand the value of things, why not just take things to a consignment shop?
Consignment shops can be a solution for folks, and there are still some of them out there. People need to recognize that, first of all, the consignment shop is the organization that's actually going to price your item. You may be thinking this dining table shouldn't go for any less than $2,000. The shop will make the price, will set the price. And then over time, if the item does not sell, that price typically will come down each month. And then at the end of the contract, if that item doesn't sell, you either donate it or you pick it up and it goes back in your house after you had already decided to let go. So it's not always the best solution for placing the items that you no longer need.
I'm thinking the last thing you wanna do is have to go and pick something back up. So that doesn't sound
Especially if you
fun.
realize you don't need it.
Jonathan,
I just wanted to add to what Stephanie said. Sometimes I feel like consignment shops are good if you just have like one or two items that you can take to donate. A lot of times when people are downsizing, it's a lot of things. But if you have, one dresser or one wingback chair or something like that, they also, I think, tend to be a little more tuned into what's stylish and contemporary now. And that's something to take into consideration as well, is how stylish that piece of furniture might be. So, and you also have to have somebody with a pickup truck to get it there.
Yeah, clothing is another thing. People say, oh, I have these beautiful classic clothing items from when I worked, and they're in great condition, but they were more than 5 years old, and the places that are consigning clothes are really looking for more recent, either very recent or vintage.
And then there's the organizations that help women that are trying to get back into
Yes,
it. So
absolutely.
they would love to have like,
Dress for
so there are
Success.
places for things, but sometimes it's not
Yeah.
gonna be.
And we do always recommend donating clothes, like she just mentioned, the Dress for Success, things like that.
Dress for Success.
Secondhand market clothes just don't do great, so donation is a really good way to go.
again, I have an article on the back table, on the back side, that talks about like Wheeler Mission, like they're almost always in need of clothes.
You got it.
Yeah, oh good, yeah, Sherry.
My mother had some things that she had hung on to for a long time. And there was like a fur coat that she redesigned, had it cut off. I think she had it back in World War II at the end of that. And so I kept thinking, I don't wanna, that's not gonna go for most people. It needs to be in a special place. So I thought about it, and we lived out on the south side, and occasionally we'd go over to the University of Indianapolis and see plays. So I thought, I'm gonna contact their theater department and see if they'd be interested in these things, and sure enough, they took them.
Oh, good,
Great
so you found a
solution.
home, yeah, great home. You talked a little bit, Stephanie, about some items that are really hot right now, and so can you talk to us a little bit more, or again, about those most lucrative items?
Yeah, I read an article last week about how one of the first copies of the Superman comic sold in 2024 for over $9 million. You got one of those? Let me know. But that's a needle in a haystack, a kind of 1 in a million thing. Generally speaking, these days, the most lucrative items coming out of homes are jewelry, silver, and coins. I work those materials extensively. And if you've been paying any attention to the price of gold and silver, they just keep going up and up. The price of silver has doubled in the last 4 months or so. So those items still have significant value. There's obviously fine art and other things that have value, but those are the three categories that typically, in general terms, are the most lucrative items coming out of a house these days.
Does that mean like silverware?
Sterling silver. Sterling silver, again, has at least the value of the metal. There are other, depending on what the item is, what the condition is, et cetera, it may make more sense to sell it as is, as opposed to selling it to a wholesale dealer. But yes, sterling. A lot of people have silver and they think, oh, this is my grandma's silver, and it's actually silver plate. Silver plate is hard to place. Sometimes you can sell it. I'm sure you see a good bunch of that.
We do, like typically it's more grouped together. Think
Yeah.
like your coffee service, your platter, your pitcher, your sugar, your creamer. People just don't even want that as decor so much
Yeah.
anymore. So it's still gonna sell for something, but usually silver plate is kind of grouped together. But then obviously sterling, a whole different story.
Whole different story.
Anything else that you can think of, Lee, that kind of outperforms or surprises
Instruments
people?
do well. It's one of those categories, just like coins, currency, jewelry. It's always going to be a strong category. Comics, sports cards are huge now. COVID kind of blew that whole category up. So any vintage sports cards. What are the categories are we missing?
Especially if organized and graded, not just the box of baseball cards that your dad left in the garage.
Well, typically those are the good ones
Yeah.
because those
Yeah.
are the diamonds in the rough.
Yeah, that's true.
You want to find that shoebox in the attic.
Because
That's
it's
the
worth
good
the time to go through.
Yeah, that means no one's touched it in decades.
In good condition.
Yes.
Let's see, Stephanie, I'm gonna ask you again, so we have a house full of things. How do we determine whether something sort of falls in that antique, vintage, how do we do that?
So there's some tips and tools that I suggest. First of all, the word antique can be hard. Typically people think of furniture. I'm curious if you would say this. My sense is that the antique market is very soft right now, especially for early American primitive antiques. They might come around again. Mid-century modern is great right now, but antiques, there's not as much interest. Part of what we're seeing, of course, is that the market is flooded with folks who are downsizing and letting go of a lifetime of belongings. So that impacts pricing on the secondary market. There's a very simple tool that you all have in your pocket, and it's called Google, and it's on your phone, most likely. And if it's not, and you want to find value, I encourage you to download it. So if you open the Google app, at the right end of the search bar, there's a little camera icon. You can take a picture of what you are looking at, and it will immediately give you comparable items across the web. You gotta take it with a grain of salt, keep in mind. But if, first of all, you don't know what this thing is, you can find out what it is with the Google Lens search. But then you can also, it can be a helpful tool to say whether this thing is actually of value or not. I had a client who had a glass plate, a clear glass plate that her grandparents had brought over from the old country, she said. And she said, I know this is gonna be very valuable. And I did a Google Lens search, and I was able to show her, actually, there's not a lot of value in that piece. Typically when I'm working with clients and they want to know what something might be worth, I'm not an appraiser like Lee is, I may be calling you. But I typically look at sold items, 3 locations. I choose eBay, Live Auctioneers, and Everything But the House, EBTH, which is a global auction in Cincinnati that I work with a lot. And because anyone can throw a price on something, don't just look at what's out there on Etsy or Cherish or what have you, what the current price is. Be sure you're looking at sold values, because that will give you some sense of what your item might be worth. There's more of an art to a science than a science to it.
Sounds like real estate.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfectly said. I agree with everything.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see. So it's the sold. I'm go ahead.
Yeah, so let me just clarify that a little bit. The value of there's different kinds of values. There can be personally assigned value, there can be appraised value, which is more about replacement and insurance. But so often with the things that are coming out of houses these days, the value is what someone is willing to pay for it on the secondary
Yes.
market. So that's what you've gotta be aware of. You know, what is someone really gonna buy this XYZ? It may be hot, but it may be not.
The value of what someone's willing to pay for it. Okay, I think that's one of the reasons I really like the online auctions for that purpose, because it's truly what is one man's trash is another man's treasure. And going out online, just, you get more eyeballs on it. And I see online, on Facebook, a lot of people taking antique furniture and bringing that back alive. So, but how much of that sells, I wouldn't know. But it seems like people are being very creative. I know my daughters actually shop auctions. They're looking for vintage items, the old lumber wardrobe baskets they will literally use in their gardens. So, but even after an online auction, there are still things that don't sell. So let's talk about donations. Ms. Sandra, what has changed about charitable donations?
Well, I guess I don't know the answer, what's changed about charitable donations. I mean, it's just, again, what you were saying, which is, it might be valuable to you, but if there's a market for it, so if people are wanting to sell something, I will look online, as Stephanie said, and you just try to see what is hot right now. And I would look, as Stephanie said, you go to eBay and you click on the sold button, so you can see what things are selling for. But I do know that there's a lot of charitable organizations out there, nonprofits, that really do want pretty much everything you have. So I think that you just have to do a little research as to and I have on my website, and I know it's online, you can just find what different charities accept, so.
Can you give us some ideas of that?
Sure.
What's some favorite charities or?
Well, I do like Wheeler Mission, I do like Thrifty Threads, I like animal welfare organizations, so if you have a lot of animal things, they're very appreciative of those items, and then Dress for Success. And honestly, I would just have to Google, and just see where people want things. It's hard to, get rid of mattresses.
There are two that take them?
Yeah, there's I can't remember the name of it, I have it written down. Poorhouse, P-O-U-R house. They'll take every mattress except for a king. And then, there's like TVs they don't really want TVs, but you guys might know a little more about that.
No, I didn't know that one for mattresses, that's great.
Yeah, Poorhouse.
Because I would say when you're selling a used mattress, half the time the new buyer might take it, half the time they won't. It's gonna depend on the age and how it looks and all that.
The Mustard Seed of Central Indiana is a great place to support. They basically operate like a furniture bank for people in distress. They take mattresses except kings, haven't found a place for kings. Coburn Place that supports survivors of domestic abuse. Also sometimes takes mattresses if they need them. And Thrifty Threads that we've mentioned supports Coburn Place. It's always easier to let go when you know someone can use it, as Sandra said. And my website also has a list of nonprofits. I have an article in the back about tips for senior downsizing. There's a link that will show you nonprofits. There's so many nonprofits that need our pre-owned items. Can I add one more thing about changing charitable? I am not a tax advisor. But I am aware that in 2026 there have been some changes to the tax law around hard goods donations. And my understanding is that unless it exceeds 0.5% of your income, you cannot deduct. And so for those in a higher income bracket, that can change things, but talk to your tax advisor about that.
Good point. One of the things I wanted to ask is, what do you run into when people delay that decision to start pruning through things or rehoming those items that they need to rehome? That's to all of you, actually.
I would say, take your time, give yourself enough time, don't procrastinate, because you could be sacrificing thousands of dollars in the end because you're scurrying, you're not going the proper channels to get the most money that you could out of dryers.
I'm a little bit worried about my friend now that has 3 king-size beds.
Yeah,
And they're
those
moving
mattresses.
next Monday in the
Facebook,
senior living community.
Facebook,
Yeah, Facebook Market's awesome.
yeah. I often recommend Facebook Marketplace for, large pieces of furniture that, are not mid-century modern and can't sell buyers.
I can hardly hear you. What did you say the place was?
Poorhouse for the,
Poorhouse?
Poorhouse, P-O-U-R house
Okay.
will accept, mattresses, just not king size. But I know when I was moving, I just put on Craigslist, there's like different, radiuses that you can like assign, and I just did like the whole city, and I put out a mattress I didn't want, and it was gone. It was so, liberating. It felt so good to watch all this stuff I didn't want just go. And so I just put it on Craigslist had, I think I put it on Facebook as well, but Craigslist is just incredible. But just a word of warning, you don't meet anybody in a private space, obviously. When you're selling something, you wanna have, I go to like the CVS parking lot and just meet there. But, if you have things that you wanna just give away for free, you can take them out to the curb, take a picture. People came and took everything. I had like paint, you can't get rid of paints.
Craigslist is good for free stuff. If
Yeah,
you wanna give stuff away.
People were taking my paint and things you can't throw away because you can't throw away paint. I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Sometimes the value to you is that it is out of your house.
Yeah.
And a client had an organ, it was his dad's organ, the client didn't play it, he wanted it out of his house, we put it on free at Facebook Marketplace. Found a guy who played organs, he had a friend who was a piano mover, they came, they took that sucker out of the house, John didn't get anything for it, and he was so happy because it had a new home and it was out of his house. So sometimes that's the value to you.
Yeah, I remember there were some things that didn't sell at our auction, and my client was already in her new place, so she was out of the house and she was safe. And so then I put a bunch of stuff on Facebook that didn't sell, and people came and got it.
Yeah.
But again, she was already gone and she was safe.
I just want to speak a little bit more to the what happens if you delay. People always assume they'll have plenty of time to go through a lifetime of belongings. It is a gift you give to yourself and to those who love you if you take responsibility for what you can do. If you delay, it's very possible that you will bump into medical issues, financial issues, what have you, that prompt a move faster than you expect. So as Lee was saying, it's all more stress, it's all harder to manage. Whereas if you allow more time than you think you need, you will have more agency in the process, and it will be a lot less stressful for you and your family members because you have the time to give it the attention it needs. And this process, I don't have to tell you this, it can be very emotionally exhausting. So it takes more time than you think.
Good. Sandra, I want to ask you, how do you know when it's time to bring some help in or some support?
Well, I know Sherry had a question, and then I can answer that. I did wanna.
Oh, good, yeah.
I just wanted to share, we have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. And I'm looking at this cabinet that a friend of my father made. And there's all these whatnots, you know what I call whatnots?
Yeah.
And some of them belong to his mother, some of them belong to my mother, some of them, my dad had a little favorite thing. Anyway, I thought, I care about some of this stuff, but I don't think my kids do. But I want to give them a chance to pick out something that might have meaning to them that they would like. So I started inviting them one at a time, not all together, okay? And so I start with the girls because they might be more interested in the stuff in the cabinet, where if he wants to take the men and have them look at the tools and, that kind of stuff. I don't think that's happened yet, has it? But anyway, so then I if my youngest daughter wanted a certain cup and saucer set that belonged to Grandma Smith. Okay, so I took that out and put it in a box, so the other kids didn't have a choice. That was not something that they probably wouldn't even know it anyway, right? So I wasn't trying to.
So Sherry had the children start to come through and select
Right.
their items.
And you'd have to give them deadlines too, because some people,
100%.
yeah, you know, I've had that situation and people are like, you just have to say, it will be gone on this date,
Yes.
I'm telling you now. And just give them fair warning and just really do it, stick to it.
Yeah.
I tell a quick story about that. When my husband and I took our kids to Sweden in 2006, he was on sabbatical, and I had a whole bunch of family in Sweden. We stayed with them, and we were with my uncle who had a huge library. And he went straight to a shelf and he said, "Look, John, this book is for you." And he had already written an inscription to my husband, and he put it right back on that shelf. Do you think John got that book? No. First of all, it was in Stockholm. Secondly, he had a huge library. Well, but what about if he had given it to John at that time, and John had been able to read it and had a conversation with him about it? What a difference. So just one of those things about delays.
Right. Yeah.
We were trying to get rid of a Cherry furniture, and I didn't wanna pay someone to move it, my husband and I couldn't move it. We did end up using the Restore on 96th
The
Street.
Habitat Restore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take pictures, if they want it, they come and they will take this heavy furniture out of your house. for you,
Nice.
which is
And so you said you
something-
took a picture and sent it
You
to
have to show
Restore,
them the
and then they
picture first.
came out.
Yeah.
But Restore likes it, they will not come inside your home. You
Okay.
have to get it outside your home.
No, they came in my home. This
At
is
least
the
on
one
the first floor.
Fisher's, maybe
Okay,
it's
the
different.
one south of here on 106th will not come in your home.
Might depend on the person you get a hold of that day
Maybe
too.
so, maybe
Yeah.
so.
I think that's usually what it
Yeah.
is,
Yes.
is how they're feeling that day.
Yes.
For
Call
$5
another
they might do
day.
it.
If they say no, call another day.
Habitat comes in, Habitat does pickups, St. Vincent de Paul does pickups, the Mustard Seed does pickups with a small logistics fee. At least I know those. Maybe others.
We're hearing Salvation and we're hearing AMVETS as well. I know AMVETS is good.
And then St. Augustine Home in Indianapolis, I've donated costume jewelry. They do some kind of boutique where they sell jewelry off this tree. So if you wanna donate stuff, costume jewelry, because the elderly can go in there and purchase things on their own.
Nice.
And I think a lot of senior citizens complex might use it for their bingo, things like that. And then also, recycling is another, for
Recycling.
metal and aluminum, but I will say I've had carloads of it, and you do not get very much money, but it feels good sometimes to recycle something.
To know that it's going somewhere and it's
Yeah.
gonna be reused.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Can I say something about
Yes.
costume jewelry? Be really careful about just donating costume jewelry that you don't want or grandma's jewelry. I have found thousands of dollars of precious metals in that. In fact, just last night, Dress for Success, people donate clothes and purses and jewelry for women who are trying to get back on their feet. It's a great organization to support. They have had me do a sort on the donated jewelry. I just texted my neighbor, who's the executive director, last night. I owe them over $14,000 from the lot of gold, because that has real value that can support the mission of the organization. There is still plenty of costume jewelry that they'll have, but just be careful about just assuming you drop off jewelry at Goodwill
Good.
or any
Oh,
place.
yeah, okay. Definitely wanna make sure someone's helping you look through
Yeah.
that then. Do we talk about how you know?
What was
you
the
know
question
when-
again?
Yeah, I was like, do we talk about that?
Oh, how to bring, when to bring help in.
Yeah, how do you know
Oh.
when it's time to
I mean,
bring
when you're
some help?
feeling, it's like life in general. If you're feeling like you can no longer live your life normally, that's the time, in my estimation. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, I think like you all were saying is if you just donate give yourself a lot of time to be able to go through things and just calmly downsize, then you probably don't need help. But
I always tell clients start small, like don't think,
Great.
oh my goodness, I have to do it with my entire house
Start
that I've lived in for 30 years. Think about one room or one drawer or one closet and take it in due time, because then you won't be so stressed out at the end when you're working against the closing on your house or, you know, whatever else is going on, deadlines you're working against.
I like that.
And if you find yourself not making progress, like, you know in your mind, you want to accomplish something, but it's just not happening.
I think it's so much easier when it's not your things. I know when I was moving.
I think it's that speaker right behind you guys, I'm
Oh,
so
okay.
sorry.
I know when I was moving, I brought in an organizer because I mean, I worked with an organizer, so I brought her in and said, please help me, because it's so emotional when it's your things. When it's not your things, it's really fun. Because you're not emotionally connected to it, and you know, then you can talk to the other person. You're the outside voice, you know, you're the angel on the shoulder saying, well, you know, think about this, think about that. But when you're going through it, it's a lot harder. And you know, there are some, like even you said, sometimes there's just a drawer, so much. So you just take that one drawer and you just dump it. And then you see, what do you want? What can you donate? What can you give to trash? You know?
And then your mood changes. Some days you'll say, I want to get rid of all of it. And
Yeah.
some days you'll say, I'm keeping everything.
Right.
So I'm actually moving myself right now, and I've encountered that. It is fun when it's not your stuff.
It's
when
not
it is your
yours,
stuff,
it's
it does get overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, I want to use that, but you've had it for 6 years and you haven't opened it out of the box.
Right.
You know, so
That's-
now I
that's
wait till the next day and
Right.
rethink it all.
Right.
So that's the lesson, it's just harder when it's yourself,
And also you did, like Stephanie was saying, you spent money on it. And so it's hard because you spent money on it, you hard-earned money. And now you're like just wanting to give it away, but sometimes, you know, you need that angel on your shoulder to just say, have you used it in a year? Have you looked at it? No? You know, it's time. And then when you start building that rapport, like I did with my professional organizer friend that came and helped me, it was really nice. She just said, no, yeah,
The voice
you're
of
right.
reason.
Yes, the voice of reason,
You're not
exactly. It's a lot easier.
Leanne, if I can insert,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, if I can insert along those lines, advice that a friend gave to me that was super helpful for me. One is my closet and all the clothes in my closet that I need to go through and I should go through and whatever. My clothes are sorted short sleeve, long sleeve, so I have that advantage to me. And she said, just push everything to one side. She goes, as far as you can. She goes, and then every time you wear something and wash it, put it on the left side. And just every time you wear it and wash it, put it on the left side. And she goes, and at the end of a season, you'll have everything left on that side that you never wore the whole season. Get rid of it. Put it back in your rubbish. She goes, if you did not wear it that entire season, it needs to go away. That's been really helpful. And she said her kitchen, she did the same thing. Little extreme, but it worked, is she literally took everything, like her drawers, all the little spatulas and all the little whatnots and all the little things in her drawers. She took all it out, put them in a box, put it in her dining room, and then as she went through, she took 1 year, and at the end of the year, she's like, where's my spatula for this? Where's my measuring cups for that? Where's my whatever? And she would go to the dining room and she would get it, use it, wash it, put it in the drawer, and at the end of the year, everything that was still in the dining room, she got rid of. So it was kind of like that, set it aside,
That's great.
use it, put it aside. It's been helpful for like, I never do use that. It's that I might use it another 6 years. Kind of like got rid of that stuff.
Just in case.
Just in case.
If you don't know when you last used it or when you're gonna use it again, you know you can replace it easily and cheaply, let it go. Yeah. And sometimes it's easier to have someone who is not emotionally connected to your stuff. Have you found that sometimes the sibling rivalries come back and all the garbage of the really tough emotions in the family can rear their ugly heads at times when you're dealing with stuff. So sometimes it's helpful to have a third party, like a professional organizer friend who can.
Yeah, a professional organizer friend.
I meant her friends.
Yeah.
She's in Baton Rouge.
Oh.
You can get me.
So Lee and I are getting ready to work on a project together with a client that's getting ready to move, and they're kind of in the overwhelm. So they did start having their children come out. It gave them a deadline. It was the deadline was Christmas. Some made it, some didn't. So that's added to the stress, just not coming and getting their things. And then the next one was because we want to have an auction. They have a lot of things, and I'm trying to encourage, of course, give away the items that your family wants. But then I'm running up against a church rummage sale. So she wants to donate to the Turks rummage sale, so there, it's just a challenge to
And
remove all of
sometimes
this.
clients donate too much,
Yes.
but then they still have a really good, decent amount of stuff left in the house, but there's still might not be an avenue to sell that stuff now because they've given away too much of the variety, the valuable stuff. You know, you wanna have a nice mix in the end.
Yeah, so that's been my encouragement is, I want Lee to come in and sell 90% of the things in the home, so don't give away too much. So that's been our conversations the last couple of weeks. Lee, what do we do when we need to get rid of everything in the house?
That's when an auction or estate sale, you know, is a good way to do it. That type of auction is gonna have lots of variety, so think cheap, expensive, new, old, indoor, outdoor, you know, lots of different price points. That's what people wanna see in these things, and you're gonna have more success on each individual item when you do have that variety.
Can I ask a question about the
Yes,
auction?
please, do.
We've gone to several estate sales. My sisters and I, we do this, we kind of mess around, go out and do it for fun.
They're fun, right?
They are fun, and it's amazing the condition of the houses in many cases, but I have two questions. If you were to take all the items that I had and, you know, for an auction, and who prices them? You price them, or do I price them?
So because it's an auction, things aren't gonna have prices.
Estate sale, let's go ahead and estate sale, I'm sorry.
So if it is an estate sale, you know, whoever it is, yeah, they're gonna price those. Typically, it's people that have done it, you know, many, many times. So they kind of know that sweet spot between how high you can price something, but pricing it reasonably so it'll sell within the window that the estate sale is taking place
The
for.
reason I asked about that is the last one we went to, you know, a lot of the items were very reasonable, and I found a pack of copy paper for $15.
It sounds a little high.
And I went over to
Must
this
have been a real
lady
nice
and I
one.
said, is there any way you'll go down on this? Cause usually they're all bargain prices. And she said, no, that's what they want to sell it for, and so I kinda wondered who did that, because to me, that's just a waste of somebody's time.
You know, the beauty of the auction and not pricing anything is the market's gonna determine what it's gonna sell for. You know, as an appraiser, there's a huge difference between insurance, you know, replacement value and fair market value. Replacement value to me, it means absolutely nothing. You know, those numbers are always very, very different from what something is actually worth. I like to use this example. We had an auction a couple years ago, and this plastic cup sold for $500. It was warped and, you know, used. It was from like the 90s. It was from a Kiss concert. And if it was an estate sale, we would have put that right in the trash. We would have said, no one wants this. And the auction, that's where the weird artwork, the weird piece of costume jewelry that you thought was worth $5 sells for $5,000. You know, so.
Because one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Exactly.
One other question on if you were to, you know, take a bunch of things that were mine and put them on Marketplace, or Facebook or whatever, and, you know, how long will you leave them on there if they don't sell, and am I gonna pay you the whole time? Is there a price you charge for it to go on Marketplace?
So at least for us, you know, we don't mess with Marketplace at all. All of our auctions are online. It's a timed format. Most auctions are usually gonna run for at least a week. So, you know, there's lots of time for people to see something, think about it again, place a bid, go back, place another bid. I'm getting away from your question though, I think.
Oh, I was just curious, how long?
Okay, yeah, so
And so what are you gonna
a
charge
week
me, like,
typically
a
on
week, month,
Marketplace, typically that's someone doing it themselves, or a friend helping you out, or a family member, or something like that.
I don't know that you need to, I mean, I would just put something on there until it sells, or unless you find another way to rehome it.
Yeah, my kids sell a lot of stuff. I mean, we've had a lot, we're trying to downsize, and they have sold quite a bit on there, and I know some people are understandably a little bit cautious about the fact that, you know, you can leave the money under the doormat, you never have to confront these people, but when you're moving furniture, which we have done, they have to come in the house. And so far, it's worked out just fine, and they've all sold it, but you can keep renewing your ads, I understand that. I guess I misunderstood that if I asked you to do it for me, cause I would have a whole bunch of stuff when we downsize instead of one item here and there. You know, how long you would let them sit there, and would I be paying you for some fee for that length of time?
Yeah, so typically you're just paying us to, come in, prep the auction, prepare the auction, make the auction catalog, and then it goes up, and then it runs. So we're typically just working on a commission as to what things sell for, and that's how all auction houses are gonna be.
And again, he's gonna come in and look at the home and what's in it to see if it's.
That's always the first step where I go in, you walk me around, show me everything you wanna sell, then we sit down and chat over the whole process, answer any questions, all that. And when I'm there, I'm trying to determine there's enough value, there's enough variety for us to have a successful auction for you. We say no to a lot of clients because we want you to be happy in the end. We don't want to give you false hope, false expectations as to what things are gonna sell for. Sometimes I might come off kind of mean, and it's not on purpose, but just because you paid $20,000 for that dining set doesn't mean it's worth $1,000 nowadays. It's just, everything's so different, but we want you to be happy in the end.
When you talked about, never underestimate what their value, my father gave me one of those boogaloo platter, it's about this big and it's from Philadelphia. And we took it down to what's that antiques show that comes around? It's been 10 years or so since we went down there, but we took it down and we thought, let's just see what this is worth. It was worth $8,000.
Don't assume you're gonna get $8,000.
No, I know that, but we just.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
There's never been a turkey put on it.
Yeah, if they were putting cash in front of you,
Yeah, really.
yeah, that's a whole different show.
Yeah.
That'd be a good show, I'd watch that show.
And actually, I'm curious about this, for appraisal, and you tell me whether what I'm saying is right. I caution people about getting appraisals for items they are going to sell, because it gives a false expectation of what they can get on the secondary market. Sounds like you would probably say the same thing.
100%. A lot of times people contact us and say, I want to get an appraisal on this. What is your end goal? Is it for the court? Is it for probate? Is it what is it to be done for? And typically it's to sell it, and then I'll say, you know what, you don't need an appraisal. I'm just going to give you a valuation as to what I think it might sell for.
There's
Which
a cost to
appraisals
appraisal.
are expensive. They're very formal.
Yeah.
You only want to get an appraisal if you're required to get it for whatever reason that is.
There was one client who had 4 kids, and she wanted to give them an equitable share of her stuff, and in that case, I thought, okay, that might be an appropriate way to go with an appraisal.
Yeah, I will get right to you next. I have a young lady that called me, mom just passed away, she wants an evaluation on house, because she wants to buy the house from her siblings. And so, again, just getting that opinion without necessarily calling an appraiser out and charging for those types of things.
Right, valuation, free, appraisal, expenses.
Yes, yes.
He was talking about auction, so when you go in and look at information or look at the items, then do you take a picture and put it on the internet and that's how you do it?
Yeah, so we're creating an auction catalog. So, no matter what it is, and it's not like we're just selling nice higher end things, it's everything in your house. So, most things are gonna be listed by themselves in the catalog. Think a nice lamp, a television, a sofa. But the lower value things might be grouped together. Think hand tools, kitchen utensils, books, things like that. Because the average estate, there's still thousands of dollars in value, even in that stuff that you might think, oh, nobody wants it, I'm just gonna get rid of it, I'm gonna drop it off at Goodwill. That adds that variety to your estate.
What's the turnaround time as far as you auctioning the stuff off and you're tired of doing it and then it's over?
So, the first step is always that consultation to make sure we can do a sale for you. Typically, a lot of our clients, they're planning things out, they're taking their time, doing it right. So we'll have that initial consultation, we'll say, hey, this is great, we're gonna work together. Eventually, once the house is sold, there's closing on the house, or, their new house is built, or wherever they're going is happening there. I got away from the question again.
So they're gonna take several days to come in and take pictures of everything that's going to sell. And then, yes, they put it online for about 10 days.
10 days, okay.
And then
And it's usually gonna take, any auction house, the crew, a few days to a week to create that auction catalog. Cause there's a lot to it, when they're in there, they're gonna touch every single item in the house. Every single thing,
Every
measure
single
it, take
item.
multiple photographs of it, describe it.
Yeah.
So it sounds,
Take
it is a
good
big
photos of
undertaking.
it.
They earn that commission.
That's
That
right, it's a
is-
big undertaking, but, once you've done it enough times, you become really efficient
And you only leave it up for 10 days and then the auction comes down?
Auction's typically only up for 7 days. There's no benefit to running it any longer. People might see an item and then forget about it because the auction doesn't end for 30 days. You know, you really want to stick with that week window. There's really no benefit to running it longer.
And then there's a pickup day. People will come and just to the door and pick up the items that they purchased.
Yeah, so on the pickup days for our auctions at least, so let's say you win some items at the auction ends, you receive your invoice, you pay online, everything's online, super easy. Then you schedule your pickup date right there in your invoice, come to the house on the advertised, pickup day and time, but nobody goes in your house. A lot of these auctions that we do, the houses are flawless, and if you had hundreds of people come to the house, it's, they're not gonna respect it the same, so it's our crew, our movers, coordinating, getting everything out. Controlled chaos, I think there's hundreds of people coming to pick up, but it's very controlled.
People run into trouble in some subdivisions that have like one-side street parking, and I mean, there's a lot of places where it's.
Sometimes are absolute nightmares, and sometimes we can't have an auction because of that, and things have to be moved off-site, which can get expensive, it's really expensive to have a crew come in, pack things up, transport them. But we've done some crazy ones with driveways, and sometimes you have to hire a police officer to kind of guide the street, or you make it work essentially.
My friend had it done pickup stretched out for several days because of the parking situation. They weren't allowed to.
Right, they're all different.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Do you do storage units?
We do storage units as well, yeah.
Good question. I didn't know you did that.
Mhm.
So what we talked about today a little bit was just having someone come alongside and sort of help you. Make it a little bit more fun to sort of sort through those things, have an organizer help. And for someone like myself as the real estate agent that's helping navigate the whole process, organizers are just invaluable, and auctioneers that will come in and help just remove all the items after someone's moved. And so I thank you guys for what you do. I want to open it up for questions now. And Stacy and then Debbie.
So I have a question about my parents in the 80s and 90s thought Franklin Mint would be like the best thing ever. So they have a ton of items, most specifically John Wayne, but a lot of plates and other collectibles. And I don't know that those are going to go well over at an auction. So if those things don't sell, what do you do with them? Because I mean, donating all, I don't know. What do you do with those types of things?
Some categories of things, they have their end of life cycle. It's you donate them, where are they gonna end up at the dump? It's possible. You just never know. And I would say collector plates are one of those big categories. Franklin Mint should be shut down. A lot of things they sell, you're never gonna recoup what you pay for it.
There's just so much value in all of it.
There's not.
I know.
Yeah.
But you
Believe me,
can't.
I know.
Yeah.
They do.
You don't want the plates,
But people
They
do
might
want
hear it
free
better
things.
from an expert, the expert from away who can tell them, they might hear it better from.
They wouldn't believe you.
Okay, there you go.
But I wouldn't throw
I'll
anything
break the
away.
news to them.
I would donate it in the end though, cause they might, and it might sell
Yeah.
up at a dump, but to tell you the truth, people might use that plate, as a plate that.
You're not supposed to eat off those.
Oh, never mind. Sorry.
Not for human consumption.
And it's
except for
healthy
that.
jewelry. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh my Debbie.
What if you have a family member that has a lot of coins, and when it's time to settle their estate, where do you go to sell those types of items, including expensive jewelry? Who do you reach out to?
Yeah.
So
I would call.
you gotta be careful to ensure you're working with someone who's trustworthy. We buy gold, we buy coins, not always the right way. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. I had a client, when I became a collectibles advisor, relationships opened up that allowed me to sell to wholesale dealers for gold and silver. And I had been working with a trusted local resource. They're still trusted, I just don't use them because of this story. I decided a client had 2 sets of sterling flatware, and I sold them to my wholesale dealer. And after the sale, I called my trusted local resource, And I said, here's the value, here's the spot price, here's the weight, here's the purity of the silver. What would you have given me for that? And they were gonna give me less than half of what I got from my wholesale deal. So which just underscores the need to be careful where you go. I'm sure you see coins and precious metals all the time. I work with them all the time. Just be careful.
Especially when it's a large sum.
It is, and dollars are huge right now.
Yeah.
So work with so many different countries. Talk to friends who perhaps have referrals.
Coins and currency, jewelry, precious metals are always great for auction too. Usually those things are gonna go right to that end buyer, not a middleman or a dealer, but it's all about finding somebody you trust. You know, because most people out there buying coins, gold, silver, they're gonna qualify you on the spot, and in their mind, how little can I pay for this?
And you don't know, oh, this isn't really true.
Right.
This is, I've actually had several clients who took jewelry to jewelry stores, and they said that actually that's not really real gold, and it was real gold. But they assume you don't know what you're seeing, because a lot of times, like going back to the costume jewelry, people don't know what they have. So it's important to get people who know how to process and evaluate.
Okay, yes,
I have an off-the-wall question. Have you ever encountered an accordion?
accordion.
Certainly.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and they sell for quite a bit, yeah.
Okay,
Depends on your vision.
Some of the real fancy ones with all the inlay and the color and all that.
So.
Can you play though?
I went to the state fair at Illinois.
Oh, wow, muscle memory, right? It's still there?
I can't repeat the music. I even have the music, I'm like, okay, I think that might be me, I'm not sure.
That's fun.
Instrument.
Yeah, but like I said before, instruments always carry great value.
Where do you
There's a
sell
real
them?
shortage of instruments in the hands of
Online.
people.
Oh.
Auction.
One of the things about online auctions, and perhaps less when you've got pickups from locally, but sometimes the market is better overseas. I work with an eBay seller who routinely sells flatware to people in Australia and New Zealand because there's a better market there. Same thing sometimes for China and glassware. But it's not always the local market that's going to buy them, so that's the online.
And that's what's great about online, yeah, like
Yeah.
she just said, like the Kiss Cup I mentioned, I forget where they got shipped to, but we ship stuff all over the world every week. There's value, you know, something that might not have value here has value somewhere else to someone else.
Again, that's the benefit of the online process, is you're just getting into the eyes of everywhere. Yeah, absolutely.
Leanne, just a
Yes.
follow-up question. The question was asked about where do you sell coins and jewelry and stuff, and you said, you know, find someone reputable, find someone you trust. Absolutely agree, but how do you know that that person's trustworthy or reputable? Like what can you,
They're selling it
How
out
do
of
you
the
know?
trunk of the
'Cause-
car, probably not.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like how,
Probably not that. You know, I would say. at
how
least
can you
for-
vet people?
At least for the auction business, you know, a lot of our business comes from referrals. We've done a sale for your friend, your neighbor, your parent, you know, whatever it is. And then, you know, reviews online nowadays, you know, look at, or before you sell to anyone, look at several different people, different options, go with whoever you feel most comfortable with. But nowadays, everybody looks at online reviews when you go to a restaurant or whatever it is.
Can we trust ChatGPT to tell us whether we're accurate?
I think it lies to you a lot, so be careful about
so.
that. When I ask a dumb question, it's a great question.
It's like, how do you, because you wanna know someone's reputable, how do you know? Like,
Talk to your friends, talk to people, and if you're not sure, you could, if you've got a large coin collection or a jewelry collection, you could try to sell one with someone who you think is trustworthy, see how it goes, and then decide to sell more later on.
Yeah, sometimes we have clients like that where they might, like right now we have a client has a huge fishing lure collection, like worth a couple $100,000 of fishing lures. They wanted to start small. Let's have a first auction, see how that goes, second auction. And people with large coin collections, we have done that many times too. I think our record was 19 auctions for one person over a 2-year period. But yeah, start small, get your feet wet, see how you feel, and then say, all right, now here's the gold Kruger ants.
Here's the
You
gold.
know, after you can trust them.
Do you have some coin shops that you would recommend?
I don't, because we want to sell them at auction. You know, we do coin auctions all the time. They do fantastic. When we do those, I would say 10% is picked up locally and 90% is sent elsewhere, which that's what you want. You know, that way you know it's going to that end buyer, the person that wants it, not necessarily a dealer that's gonna buy it low and then flip it and go sell it for more.
But you'd have to have somebody to refer to about the condition of the coins, because that's the big key.
If they're ungraded, yeah, that's especially true on coins. So with coins, typically a lot of auction houses, they're gonna scan them. So you can see that crazy little detail, cause yes, same coin, two different conditions, one's worth $1, one's worth 20K.
But do you send those off to that house and have them appraised or
Sometimes we'll send coins to get graded. If it's a really, really high-end coin, you know, it's gonna sell for more if that buyer knows, you know, the consensus is that this coin grades, you know, exactly as a 9.5 mint or whatever it is.
Yeah, I started collecting coins at 10 years old, and I haven't dealt with them for a long time, and started digging out my basement, and the stuff that's down there is unbelievable. But I saw my coin collection for the first time in 30 years.
Hopefully there's some good ones in there.
There's gotta be some kind of value here, of something.
I am, you know, people think, oh, people aren't collecting coins, and I'm into coins, and I have been amazed, this is one of the things that has amazed me most about my work as an organizer, amazed at how many people have a box of coins tucked away, often dads and granddads. One of my first clients said, I got my granddad's silver dollars, they were about 80 silver dollars, they got over $2,000 for these things, and that's when it goes to the surprise. Sometimes they can be really surprised at how much they add up to.
Yeah, and I would say, yeah, it seems like every house has that little box at least of the old metal tin coffee can of coins that they just forgot about.
Yeah. CoinSnap is a good app if you have just a few coins and you wanna see what the value might be and what the silver content is, et cetera. CoinSnap is one.
How far down the line does that go? I understand, you know, dimes, everything's silver, but the nickels, the pennies.
That app does, in terms of the value of the coins?
Yeah, is there?
There's certainly some
I mean,
value.
probably rare pennies.
They're rare pennies.
There's things all over the board, but
Yeah,
silver
exactly.
wise,
Silver.
1965 through 69, coins are 40% silver.
Yeah.
Anything after 69, there's no silver in any American coins anymore.
It's $0.50 still through 71.
There we go. Y'all heard that. But that's why, you know, a lot of newer coins, not so much value because there isn't that base of at least silver content.
Yeah, and like people have the state quarters and the
Sacagawea dollars,
their face value,
yeah.
take them to the bank,
Penny
use them.
halves,
Yeah.
no, unless they're 69.
Yeah, I took, I found a small little bag of coins in my basement, and I took those to, a dealer, can't even remember the name of the place right now. But, and the silver content was worth more than what the coins collecting value was.
Yeah, sometimes there's the numismatic value, other
Right.
times it's the value of it.
Kelly,
Especially right now with the prices.
read your question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Kathy?
Kathy, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just curious about the auction. Do you put a minimum on things?
Typically, we're not gonna put a minimum on most things at auction. People respond differently when they see that everything starts at $1. No reserves. People like to see that. So sometimes we'll put a reserve on something, but typically it's a Rolex, it's an Aston Martin, it's a really expensive painting, it's things that make sense. But really, you're hiring that auction company to, you know, do their job to make sure that the people are out there knowing about the stuff, bidding against each other, getting those prices higher.
And then when the auction is over, do I get my stuff back or?
You get your stuff back. If it doesn't sell, of course you're gonna get it back. We're just a service, you know, helping you sell the items.
Okay. But silver, gold, I mean, you would make sure that didn't go for.
You know what's funny? We never put reserves on that kind of stuff, and it always sells for more than it should.
Okay.
So that's just, you know, hiring a reputable company that is on your side, wants things to sell for as much as possible.
Okay.
I have heard the same thing, that not having a minimum value, things always sell for what people will pay.
And typically when I do the
maybe
walkthrough with the client and you know, they point something out, they say, oh, I wanna put a reserve on this, I'll ask them what that number is and I'll say, oh, it's gonna sell for way more than that, or I'll say, you're crazy. I say keep it if you want it for that, because no one's gonna pay
Well,
that.
Franklin meant plates, just.
There's that demolition place that just opened on the highway.
Ooh, donation.
There we go. No, there's some value to them, it's just not a lot.
Mary, yeah.
One of the problems I have that's stalling me out is I have things that I'm not sure who to go to on the value. Artwork, I have some artwork I know is valuable. I have historic documents that I've been finding in boxes from the attic of my grandmother. From World War I, a letter from the president of Japan, and, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't go to you with that. I'm sure there's got to be, like the Smithsonian, that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for, is that go-to person. How do you find that?
I mean, first off, you're like she mentioned earlier, it's just Google, try and figure out what it is, try and get a hint of maybe it is something, and then you kind of just gotta go down that rabbit hole of making phone calls and doing research. But there are things that we sell ourselves too that don't sell through our auction house. Like right now we've got a prototype rifle, really cool, one of one. How do you even put a price on something like that? You know, but something like that's gonna go to a specialty auction house that worldwide that only sells, you know,
Yeah, that's what I'm
antique
looking
firearms.
for. How do you narrow it down to those people that specialize in historic documents and things
Google
like
is
that?
your friend.
It's just gonna, depending on
Google?
what the category
I don't
is,
trust
doing
Google.
some research.
It's
Well, Google's
AI.
not giving you opinions. Google, if you type in, you know, auction houses dealing with historic documents or something like that, it will begin to give you information. And
Okay.
you can, there's research in it.
Homework.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you trust the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like
You don't
just
trust the
typing
internet,
in,
then that's hard.
yeah,
Yeah, it is hard.
yeah, but I get you closer.
Yeah,
Like
gives
Googling
you information,
auction
and
houses
then
and
you
deal
speak
with
with humans.
important papers,
Yeah.
yeah, get you closer. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have cards, or can you give us telephone numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah, we all have some information back here we can give you
As
afterwards.
soon as we're done here, I'm gonna excuse them, they're gonna go back and then you can go meet them. Thank you for that. Yes, Louis.
Stamps are hard. I would say 99% of stamps are not worth anything, but there's still some that are worth millions, you know, it's just the ultra rare. But we sell lots of stamp collections and they typically don't sell for a lot, just because it's not the right kind of stamps that people are collecting.
Yeah, and people just aren't collecting stamps much right now. I got a guy who has a stamp club at his school in Franklin, and I give him almost all the stamps that I find. And I said, look, when you find one that's worth $1 million, you better share it with me.
Yeah.
And my client. But it's really not, it's hard to get much money for stamps these days.
Yeah. Sylvia, it's Sylvia, right? Go ahead.
I have my aunt's ring that has a special cut from 50 years, 60 years ago. The diamond has a special cut to it. Would I Google, auction diamond kind of thing, or?
For selling it or knowing that you have it? Talk with one of us, or go to a trusted local resource. I would Google where to sell your diamond on the internet.
Okay, cause, I did take it to a jeweler, and he said, it was a rare cut, and he was gonna give me $2,000 for it, and I just assumed that he was undercutting me anyways.
That's when you wanna go to a
I thanked him for his
few
advice.
and kinda get one offer might be crazy high, one low, but if you have three really close, then you probably found, you know, you're probably being honest with you.
And it might sell more at auction. You know,
Really?
Again, I work with I might be working with Aether as well, but there are various different auction options for you, and it's possible that it would sell more than the value of what you get locally. And it's really fun, actually, I'm sure you see this, that there are times when, at the very end of the auction, when it's closing, stuff picks up. Last night, you know bubble lights, vintage Christmas bubble lights
Yeah.
from the 40s or 50s? A lot of those, meaning a small section of those, sold for over $1,700. Last night. I'm like, okay, bubble lights.
Yeah.
We want those bubble lights.
My daughter, was looking for an ice maker in her coffee shop, a big, and she was it was her first auction. She's like, Mom, I can get this for $1, and it was just like all money.
But it sold for like $3,000.
It did,
Yeah.
yeah.
The nature of any auction, prices are gonna be super low until the last 12 to 24 hours of the auction. We always tell clients, don't watch the auction, because all the clients call me like 2 days before it ends, panicking. Lee, what did you do? Everything's gonna sell for $1, and I say, trust the process. Just relax. And they call me afterwards and say, Lee, thank you. They sold for surprising prices.
And to the emotional part of it, because sometimes things, at auction, typically what I say to clients is about 10% will sell over what you expect, 10% will sell lower than you expect, the rest will sell at market value, which is what someone's willing to pay for it. When you have made a decision to let go of something, recognize that it's out of your house, someone else is gonna give it use, and let it go, as opposed to holding on. I mean, that initial process of letting go can be the hard part, but when it's out of your house, the market drives it, and you're getting something for it.
I have one question we haven't touched on, in broad generalities, I guess, toys, vintage toys.
Oh, vintage
from the 50s,
toys.
60s, bicycles, I don't know.
Recreational items, yeah.
So just.
Vintage toys do great. They always have. It's a strong market, and now obviously other toys are becoming vintage. As time goes on.
Like what we played with.
That's right. So growing up, that's what my parents did. They had a specialty auction house, and it was only vintage toys. But back then, it was the 1888 marks, tin wind up, and things like that. But no, it's a strong category. 90s stuff, even 2000 stuff now is technically vintage.
I'm talking about maybe the 50s and 60s. I've heard from other people who would suggest that the people who are interested in those are kind of like 70-ish plus.
And they're gonna find that stuff online,
or something.
So,
yeah.
Or local, I saw a lot of vintage toys to local dealers who had vintage and antique shops. And people are always surprised, you can get money for that? Yep, that little set of children's dishware tea set, that kind of stuff. Or games or G.I. Joes or whatever. There's good money in vintage toys. Especially if the condition is good. Obviously it's helpful to have original boxes and that kind of stuff. But even without that, you can get some good money.
But not dolls.
Oh my gosh, let's talk about dolls. Would you like to talk about dolls?
No.
Dolls are one of those categories, like Beanie Babies.
It's like stamps.
Yeah,
There's some that are
stamps.
really good.
We just
but
sold
the
one at
vast
over
majority.
Yeah, I just sold one for a client at a different auction for over $800. I'm like, that's awesome. There was a client I worked with in Greenwood. I swear she had $1,000 dolls around her house. All these eyes looking at you when she walked in. She built beautiful cases. It was something she really cared about. The whole collection went to auction and didn't do well at all because people just aren't collecting dolls and aren't valuing them. There is a doll auction called Sweetbriar. You might check that out. And sometimes special ones, there are still a few, but they're hard.
What about Disney movies?
Disney,
Original.
Well, you've probably seen an article about some VHS that sold for $1,000 on eBay. Maybe, but not really.
No.
Another one is the Princess Diana Beanie Baby. There was articles out. You've heard this before, where it sold for $13,000 on eBay. No, it didn't. And everybody seems to have one of those. I've gone to houses where they had 5 of them, and I say, those are worth $5. For each of them? No, altogether. So the VHS tapes, no. There's some diamonds in the rough, but odds are you don't have that one.
I would have said a year ago today, I would have said I cannot sell Beanie Babies, Yadros, or Hummels for clients because those are 3 things that just said, I want to deal with you guys, all of them. Not for a lot of money, but
Give me their number.
I will give you his number. Yeah, absolutely, because it's rare.
It is about rehoming these items to
And
someone
someone
who wants
else,
them.
exactly,
Yeah.
someone else can have some fun with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes donating like the Beanie Baby collections, you might find a charter school teacher would love to have those for their classroom, or a Sunday school class, or a senior center, whatever, might have opportunities to put those things to good use.
Who has something right now they want to rehome?
Oh,
Who doesn't?
Okay, go ahead and ask, like, where to rehome it. Like clothes, where We have clothes. Where do you donate?
Unless they're really good designer handbags sell well at auction.
Okay.
Old books.
Old books.
Old books, we sell a lot of them. Typically what's gonna happen is we're gonna look through them. Some are gonna be sold individually if they carry enough value. Others might be grouped together, you know, a big category of historical books or local books or kids
Art
books
books.
or, you know, whatever it is. But books, they're expensive when you buy them, but the secondhand market doesn't necessarily hold so much value. And, you know, for example, we just had a collection of a bunch of books from the 1700s. That doesn't equate to value at all. Some did very well, and others sold for dollars. And it's not just because you know we sold it. It's no matter how you sold it, it was gonna sell for that. So books, kind of like stamps, all over the place.
One of my dealers is a very experienced book dealer. He does it in retirement, and sometimes I'll have him come in to look at a collection. And he said what Lee said earlier. Just because it's old doesn't mean that it's value. A lot of it is condition. Also, textbooks, travel books, encyclopedias, although some of them are coming back, but textbooks, even if it's an old primer from the 1800s, it doesn't necessarily mean it has value. If you've got signed copies or items that have gone out of print, that can be valuable. Or whole collection, like a whole Nancy Drew collection, or a whole Hardy Boys with the originals, etc. Sometimes there's some value in that.
What if you want to donate?
There's some great donation sites. Indie Reads is a nonprofit in town that does literacy. They have a bookshop that supports their work. Libraries, also, if you can donate there, they use it to support their work. Other ideas for donating books?
Half price store.
Half price. Half price books, who's gone there? You go with a box, you stay while they look at it, and they give you $8.63. But it is a place where you can get some money for your stuff.
That is true. And a place to rehome things at least, yeah.
And there's a
Depends on
website
your
called,
goal, right?
It depends on your goal. I always guide folks in the collectibles side of things. Be aware of what your mindset and what your goals are. Are you trying to get the most money possible? That's fine if that's your goal, but that's gonna guide some of your decisions. Are you hoping to put it in the right hands whether you get money or not? That's a very different thing.
And my goal for an auction, when my clients have moved on, is to get everything out of the house. And I found an
Get it going
auction-
and get as much as you can.
Absolutely. It's just,
And let go of those thoughts that you had that there would be XYZ value, because not always the case.
something else you want gone from
Thousands
you.
of CDs.
Thousands of CDs.
They're gonna be grouped together, you know.
Bundled, yeah.
They're gonna sell for a couple dollars a piece. Sometimes yes,
So,
sometimes
to get rid
no.
of them,
Just depends on what genres they are. Rock and roll is always gonna do good.
yeah. Evelyn was shocked that you bundled like her mop, some cleaning items, some brooms together in a lot, and someone bought them for like $10.
Cleaning chemicals are expensive, and at
Yeah.
auction you can sell a half-used bottle of Windex.
The things that are in the back of your cabinets, you will bundle together and sell. Yeah.
Almost anything.
We did an estate sale for Scott Jones a few years ago, the inventor of voicemail in Carmel. His house won House of the Decade on MTV Cribs, so very very fun auction, of course. But we made national news, international news actually, because it was just so fun and different. And the offerings were in a Tyrannosaurus Rex skull and a half-used bottle of Windex. I mean, prices literally started at 50 cents and went up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So value to all of it.
One more question.
What about 78 vinyl records?
Oh,
They're going to be better than CDs. I mean, we have auctions all the time that are just records. So it just depends on, you know, what it is.
Do you deal with local people? There was a vintage record shop in Grotterville.
Did they close? Did I read
I
that?
thought they
No,
did.
no, they're still open.
They are okay.
They
Still
really-
open.
But no, that's an option too. You know, take it to them. You know, see what they're going to offer you for it. It's going to be like half price books though. You know, they want to make a profit on it, so they're going to offer you a certain amount and expect to make a
See,
certain
in my
amount on it.
head, like everybody else, I think they're worth a lot of money.
Right. Odds are they aren't.
70s or not, 78s or not. Sometimes, when you're selling to local folks, sometimes it could be a fast sale, like antiques, etc. It may not be the highest value, but it could be a fast sale. When I work with local dealers, I explain to my clients that the local dealer has to turn it around for profit. So a number of my dealers will pay me 50% of what they think they can price something for. So the client's not getting the highest value, but think of it, it's a win-win because The client gets some money, I get some money because I'm brokering the deal, the dealer gets some money, and when someone buys it, who's gonna wanna use it? And I love that idea. But so, when you're selling to resellers, just recognize that they still need to turn it around for a profit. If you sell to an eBay seller, they have a lot of fees, et cetera, so they may not be able to pay 50% of what they're gonna price it for. So you gotta be aware of the market.
Thank you. Thank you guys for all your great questions.
We'll be around and we have information on the back table.
I was actually gonna take this time to excuse you to go to the back of the room, just throw your mics down. Don't tired of mine right now. Thank you so much. What a resource. All right, friends, I want to again ask you to please complete your blue surveys.